everyone, welcome back to our channel, Sugar, Spice, and Everything Chaos. If you're new here, we're going to talk about something interesting today. And if you're an old listener, thank you for returning. I am Pearline, and this is Anne. We are going to be your host for today's episode. And what are we going to talk about today, Anne?
I guess I think we wanted to. This is our last series that we are doing from physical health, which is something that's really real for many women, and it's also something that has been a part and parcel of a woman's life, and we don't want that to be, and that is pain. So I guess we wanted to talk about pain in our last series, and I hope listeners, where whoever is listening today, will be inspired to really look at their life and see whether this pain that they are going through is real and how they can take care of it. So yeah.
Pain's pretty fascinating to talk about for me because right now I'm kind of in pain, emotional and physical. But I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So for me, I think like pain comes from this thing of like either stress, like if I'm in a good mental state, I think like even if my body is going through something, I can ignore it and like I don't feel like some sense of distress in my body. But if I'm not doing good, even the slightest of issue with my body would be like too much to handle. And I think, I used to judge women a lot, like when I was younger, like older women a lot, because aunties usually keep complaining about how I have knee pain, back pain. And I've seen like married women, not aunties, like just married women doing it, young married women as well. And I've always wondered, like, you look healthy, you do eat well, why so much pain? And now I'm in this position where I'm like, oh, I get it. So it's not
Hmm.
just about like actual physical, injury or damage, but it's a lot to do with like how you feel at that point in time. So, why do you think it is that we women complain so much about pain? And why is it that we're not able to do anything about it? Like we know it is something that's not normal because we like this is something that people say, right? You will like if you look at housewives, you're at home all day. Why are you saying that you have this pain? But then they don't have an answer. Their pains are very real. So why do you think this is happening to us?
So I think one thing I wanted to really correct is that you said we know that pain is not normal. I don't think so. A lot of people really understand that pain is not normal because we've been told often that, period pains, they are normal. It happens, then labor pain, and you have other pain, back pain. If you have a C-section, you are supposed to have pain. So I guess we've been told one thing which is very consistent is that pain is part and parcel of being a woman and women's life. And I think that is not something that is nice to hear because it feels like, okay, just because I'm a woman, I'm like doomed for suffering, sort of a thing. So yeah, that's that.
Like this kind of reminds me of this Adam and Eve myth, right? Where I think like if you're familiar, for those of you listening, if you're familiar with the myth, it's that God created man and women, and then God said, "Don't eat that fruit." But like obviously, women will go disobey and eat the fruit, and the consequence of that is that she will experience pain, especially pain during childbirth. And I think for a lot of women who grew up listening to myths like this, right, you kind of internalize this idea that pain is normal. Like,
Mm,
I experience pain more than a man because I'm cursed. Like,
mm,
Eve did something and now I have to suffer, right? And I think, like, this is also something that got reinforced in my school, where when, again, like, I think this was like sixth standard or seventh standard, when girls used to, complain about cramps and they used to like say, I can't listen, I need to like put my head down. The teachers would be, and these are female teachers, by the way, they're
I
like
know.
women,
Oh
right?
God.
And they would like pull you aside and they will say, what girls, like you're complaining for this? What's gonna happen when you have to give birth to children? I was also like you once, but like, now I've given birth and this pain is nothing, and they mock your pain
Yeah.
and invalidate it. So when you say, right, like that pain is not normal, uh, it how do you like justify that with scientific backup? Because I think the people would want to know.
Yeah, I think I think I personally have a lot of psychosomatic symptoms. That's my way of my body of reacts to stress, and I have back pain, headache, migraines, and all of that. And of course, I also have extreme bad period pains, and I used to suffer. You know that you have seen me, and it's just that during those times, all I heard from people was endure the pain. Because I wanted to take some pain medicine, but then people would be like, no, it will affect your fertility, it will affect this, it will affect that. And they just made me feel like I have to endure it. And I think for most part of my life, I've been that way. And then I guess recently, I think few years back, I was working with this reproductive unit, which and I was on pain that day. I was working, I went to my room and I couldn't bear it. And you know how we crawl in the floor, like we want to crunch and crawl. So I was doing that, and then one of the doctors walked in, who was my fellow colleague. She just walked in and she said, what's happening, why are you like this? And then she was like shocked to see me in that state, and she said, this is not normal for you to have so much pain and to crawl in the floor. This is not really normal. Why don't you take medicine? Because And I said, won't it affect me? No, it won't affect you. It's just a medicine. You just can, like, you don't have to endure the pain because that's not normal. So apparently, that's when I came across this weird disease, which is very cruel, which is called endometriosis. For those of you who don't know, endometriosis is when a woman has extreme pain in the sense it's like they are dying. And that happens because the lining of your uterus starts to form in other areas in your body. So when you bleed, your tissue, you bleed from the tissues. So there's the vagina, it comes out of the vagina, the blood. But normally, when you have these tissue outside of your uterus, you don't have a way out for these blood. So these blood gets clotted and enmeshed everywhere. So it's a very painful situation. So she said, if you have so much pain, it's either you have endometriosis or something else is wrong with you. Maybe stress, maybe other things that happens wrong with your body, like maybe the position of the uterus or your hormones. So yeah, so that's when it actually a doctor had told me that it's not normal to have period pain. So that's my that was really mind blowing for me at that time, because I was like 24, 25 at that time. At 25 years, I didn't know. Since the time I had my puberty, I didn't know that pain is not normal.
I think like this is something that a lot of celebrities are talking about as well. Where I think this is Barbara Sprouse, if I'm not wrong. So I think I saw her post the other day, where it was basically about being diagnosed with endometriosis after like 13 years. So this is a successful model who is I think she's walked in fashion shows, including Victoria's Secret. And it was very surprising because I thought like if you're sick with hormonal issues, you cannot look a certain way because there are obviously those myths around it, right? But she looked completely normal and she was athletic. Like there's no symptom of like PCOS or like no what do you say dysfunction that you would like look at and then say, okay, this is she's going through something. But then when she spoke about it, she also spoke about how it was a struggle where a lot of doctors who met her, they dismissed her pain, which is why it took her such a long time before she got diagnosed. And by the time she got diagnosed, they had to kind of do a surgery. So, like you said, right? I think uh, like it's a very funny thing that happens in the medical world where this is basically kind of similar to cancer, right? Your uterine walls, they are having like layers of extra cells that are unnecessary. That's what happens in cancer, where it's a very unhinged multiplication of cells that happen. But then because it happens to women, somehow it's very convenient for, medical scientists to say it's not cancer, it's just endometriosis. But then it's very similar to that. It's just that sometimes it's benign, sometimes it's very harmful. So why do we kind of take that gamble on women's lives? That's something that I think we need to like talk about, because when we don't take the life of a woman seriously, what happens or what translates in like everyday life is that we normalize the pains that women go through. I mean, this reminds me of like the Indian mother-in-law and daughter-in-law dynamic, where you see that when we talk about like periods and stuff, right? You get like a little bit more space with men because men don't understand it. You get some
Mm.
level of sympathy from men. But
Yeah.
then women are very cruel about it, where they're like, I had to suffer, so you suffer as well. So they displace all the rage and anger that they went through in their youth onto the next generation, where the next generation, if there is something really wrong with them, right, they never get to sort it out because you just gaslight yourself and say, okay, maybe this pain, maybe something's wrong with me, and then that's it. And until you get into like fertility issues, right, where you're trying to get pregnant and then that's not happening, until that day, uh, you don't actually get a proper diagnosis and you don't get to live a normal life with a good quality of life.
Mm. Yeah, I guess one of the things is people kind of like to adorn or women with pain, and I think that's the main reason I wanted to really talk about pain. Is because it's sickening to even think about it, that you can look at a woman and adore her because she's in pain. Like, what kind of a psychopath are you? Like, why would you want to do that? And I think many of, like you said, many of my own teachers and my own elders have told me and looked at me as like, don't make it a big deal, don't whine, don't act too much, like, because it's just something that I feel like guilty about. When I feel I'm in pain, it's just I can't do anything about it. And I remember a friend of mine, like, who is a male. He asked me, like, what can you do? You're in so much pain, what can you do? And I said, I can't do anything about it. And that's really sad, and that's something. And also recently I came across a study, so where they understood the pain tolerance between male and female participants. So they had to dip their hands in ice, like really cold ice. And what they found was female tend to have a higher pain threshold compared to men. So do you think this might be a reason where we have a higher pain threshold? Or is it just like, the world likes to see us suffer? What do you think is happening?
I think like it's the latter. I think people just like seeing us suffer. It's almost like, if you're a woman and you're not suffering, then like people find all sorts of problems with you. Like, oh, you like I think this is like a very common experience with like periods where the first time you get it, you don't feel like a lot of pain, but the second time that you get it, somehow you develop pain. And like the first time when you're getting it, a lot of people expect you to be in pain. Like they ask you, is it hurting? Is it hurting? And then you're like, no. And then they almost make you feel bad about the fact that you're not suffering. Right? And I think in many ways, we glorify women on the grounds of our pain and our suffering. The reason women are good enough, or the reason we need to celebrate women in society is because they die during childbirth. They suffer for our, like mothers suffer. They don't eat. Even when they're hungry, the last piece of cake goes to you, not to the mother. So in so many scripts, you see that like the mother, the female character in the lives of whoever, gets the second seat, or basically it's very easy to displace or replace them. And I think growing up, you always kind of identify with this person who gets their worth from sacrificing your pleasures. Like if I'm feeling good, I think a lot of women cannot sit with the fact that they feel good. The minute they feel good, they find ways to kind of create suffering, create like pain, inflict pain on themselves, because then they get to feel good about it. So whether it be helping a friend, or I think this is something that happens, right? A lot of women choose men who they want to fix, and these guys would be hopeless, but somewhere, right, like, oh yeah, he's lost, I think my love can change him. This sort of narrative gives them a lot of purpose.
A
why
random thing
why are
comes to my
you
mind. A
yeah
random thing comes to my mind about this, what you were saying about inflicting pain. Like, women like to inflict pain when there's no pain. So, if you've seen the self-harm habit of women, of girls, you will see this
yeah slitting, yeah.
cuts. So, you don't see that cuts thing in a man, in a boy, in male, but you will see that cuts thing very prominently. I was in the UK, right? even there, I was teaching these kids who are like, and then I saw all those lines. So it's like universal. It's not like Indian kids, it's not like UK kids, it's like universal. Like these kids, after a certain age, they like to inflict pain on them. And this was very particularly in women. And I guess it makes a lot of sense. Like, if, like, for example, one of my friend was, she doesn't have period pains. She doesn't have any pains. Thank God, touch wood. But then people used to like have the same reaction towards her. Like, how can she not have pain? Even during she delivered a child, even during the childbirth process, she didn't have much problem. She didn't have
Pain.
much pain during the contraction. She was like much better. And also she had a C-section. So after C-section, you're supposed to have more pain. Apparently, that's what people said, but she was okay. But actually, if you see her personality, she's a very positive person, very happy person in general, and she is really lively. So the thing is, people did look down on her, like the nurses, the doctors, people who were in the hospital. They looked down on her just because she didn't have pain, and they thought maybe something is wrong with her. That's funny, isn't it?
I think like this is some indigenous culture where they found that these people, these women, they, you know how in indigenous cultures you don't have like a doctor, you just have midwives who come and help you. So they deliver birth by like standing upright, and then like the child just falls off. And they kind of settle in for a few hours where they get used to like feeding the child, but then they immediately go back into work. And this
Hmm.
kind of, makes it seem like the pain is more psychological. Pain as an experience is psychological, obviously, but it may be more to do with psychological causes as well.
I think
Because I
pain
think
is more social than psychological.
no, the reason I say it's psychological is because, like, as much as we think pain is associated with like physical damage, if you had to think about like the last time someone betrayed you or something, the feeling of, betrayal, I think you
Mhm.
feel it in your body,
Oh
right?
yeah, center
Like,
of the chest, it hurts.
yeah, so like that's where it hurts when you're experiencing grief or anything to do with like, you love being taken away from you, that's your chest. And likewise, if you're experiencing a lot of headache, you can kind of just think about executive functions. You're planning, organizing, executing. There's a lot of cognitive load that's happening. So this is where it kind of, pains. And we have like body maps for emotions where we see that your internal organs also kind of go through a period of distress depending on how long you carry the stress for. If you're
Hmm.
processing it, then everything goes as they're supposed to. But if you're not, it can basically self-inflict pain, and it can become like a serious issue. So I don't know if like pain as a experience is completely biological, because like you said, right, the like what the doctor told you, is it completely biological? And even the cultural study, which shows that
Hmm.
childbirth, and your friend as well, so childbirth doesn't have to be painful. But then the doctors and the nurses were judging her because she didn't experience pain. So why do
Hmm.
you think pain is has become so complex where we're not able to accept it as not normal? And in some ways, we also like feel very proud of the fact that we suffer more than anyone. And like, because I suffer more by virtue, I deserve more. I don't know what we deserve, what we're getting out of our pains, but we assume that we get more out of just
Yeah.
feeling like we
I
suffer
think
more.
I just, from what you are saying, I just thinking more culturally, like,
Mm.
because so far women are being given at least the least of the respect only because of a childbirth tendency, a womb envy sort of a thing. That's because we are able to create lives. That's the only reason men has kept us for years and years. That's
Otherwise, we
it.
would have just been killed long back.
Yeah, we would have been not needed. One, probably for the obvious procreation. The second is for procreation in the sense, sexual pleasure. The second is
But
for,
but don't you think like men don't have sex for pleasure? Like I think the pleasure for them, I mean, people can correct me if I'm wrong. I think things are changing. But if you look at how we're lacking sex education and how sex is exploited as a construct now, when you look at the pornographic contents online, I think for like majority of the young and the old men today, sex is more about power. Like sex is not intimacy, but sex is violent. Sex is, I think if you just like talk to a guy and ask him the difference between sex and rape, a lot of Indian men will not be able to tell you the difference,
I think the right
unfortunately.
word is sex for many men is ownership. The
Exactly.
it's the ownership, the
So
ability
if
to,
they
for them
touch you,
to, yeah.
yeah, if they touch you, you become useless. You become impure. What's the logic? Nobody knows. But they think like everything they touch turns to dust. Even women. But like but then you know what? Like this is an idea that's persisted for centuries. Like if you look at Aristotle's work, he talks about how he considers women as secondary because women are he says men have the seed of life. I don't know. He's so such a dumb idea, but like men have the seed of life, but women they have emptiness,
Mm.
right? And so by that logic, men are superior. And he also goes on to say that women are basically defective men because we are emotional. We're so passionate all the time that we can't think rational. So if you're hanging out with a woman, that means that you're hanging out with like a defective man. But yeah, this logic is just something that's very flawed because according to a lot of male thinkers, uh, passion, emotion, compassion, these are all like qualities of an inferior person.
Hmm.
Why is it that these are kindness? Why is it that we perceive these qualities as like if you're capable of suffering and if you're capable of sitting with your pain, that means that you're like a woman and that makes you inferior.
Yeah, I think it's a very cultural thing is what I can all think about, because I think the reason we adore pain, the reason we adore our labor pains, our period pains, and we get sympathy for it is because we have that one thing people can respect us about. And I don't think so. We are still that woman. We don't have to be that woman anymore. We can like look beyond it. We are capable, we are smart, we now understand how it's important to be passionate, how it's important to be emotional, how people are learning to be having some sort of an EQ. So I guess it's not something I think we have to glorify anymore. That's what I want to tell women across. And I think one thing that comes to my mind about a client I met in the clinic. She just came to me. I was a psychologist. She just came to me because she was like crying throughout, and the doctor sent to me. And then she was just sitting there. She said, I have no problem. I just have a lot of pain and I can't deal with the pain. So she had this condition of endometriosis, and endometriosis has a tendency to worsen. So it's a chronic disease. It's not going to get better at all because right now there's no treatment that's been found. But the only way to stop the pain is to remove the uterus altogether. So because she's a woman who is in her early 20s to 30s, she needs the uterus for procreation. So she was on a lot of pain. So she was telling me that, she feels like she was breaking into two pieces when she feels the pain. And during that time, her mother in law came and said the typical thing that they would say, as if nobody has gone through pain, as if you're the only one. And she says, you have to do all the household work. So she said she used to tie a wet towel around her stomach, and she used to wash the vessels, clean the clothes, wash the clothes, and clean the house, cook food for them. And she was like like she was crying, weeping in pain, and I can feel her pain. And it was during those COVID times, and I was wearing this mask, and tears fell from my eyes. And I'm, as a psychologist, I'm not supposed to be emotional. I mean, showing emotions outwardly, but I couldn't hold it anymore. I was like crying. Even now, I feel a little teary because it's not fair for her to go through such a pain and still take care of, you know, all of the household work. And I'm feeling a little emotional here.
But you know what? Like, I had a it was a problematic conversation. This was a religious friend of mine, and I was basically talking about how, when we talk about the pain and suffering and the spiritual nature of suffering, it's not that we have to feel pain. Like, we can obviously, like, like in Buddhism, the last layer of existence is something that talks about Anandamaya Kosha, which basically talks about like the bliss of existence. So you can be happy. And I think I'm like a very hedonistic person. I'm very like pro like pleasure and happiness. So when I was mentioning this to her, she told me like that is maybe your dharma, but like for someone else, the dharma might be to just suffer. And she said if someone finds it that it's their duty to serve their husband or their mother-in-law, that duty itself, that devotion itself will be their salvation. So I think, in our country, we put in a lot of like emphasis on devotion. It's not about reciprocity. It's not about mutual attraction or intimacy. It's about devotion. And when you're devoted to someone who is abusive towards you, right? Can you imagine the suffering you go through? Like, I am literally devoted to you, and all you ever do to me is abuse me. All you ever do is like hit me, curse me. You say very mean things to me, but I'm expected to be devoted. I think in arranged marriages, for instance, right? This is the kind of girl that a lot of young men are looking for today, where they say things like, we no longer have innocent women like our mothers. Our mothers were the last generation of innocent women. The innocence they talk about is this sort of naive devotion that women give to men. I will
Victimizing,
worship you. Huh?
victimizing women, the victim women.
I think like they don't look at it as victimizing, they look at it as like devis, right?
Mm.
You're like an angel on earth. You're the goddess who came down to earth to save me. And these men, like, they put themselves on such a big pedestal. And I think like these men also have sometimes this whole weird dynamic with their mother, where the mother would also put him on a pedestal. And if we had to kind of push it further, you see that like an unhappy woman, when she has a child, she projects her trauma onto the child. And the next generation that's born, and after that, there is no like liberation for the entire family. I think any sort of change that has to happen in society has to happen with like women being happy. So if
Mm.
you really want to change the world, don't plan genocides and like World War III. Try to take care of your daughter. Try to take care of your mother. Try to take care of your grandmother. I think when you sit and you let them have the freedom that they deserve to have, because you have no say in their freedom. I think everything will solve itself. I think when women are just allowed to be themselves, the world will heal by itself.
Hmm. And I guess you, as a woman who are listening, and who maybe you have a friend, you have women in your lives. As a woman, I guess we need to be a little more nicer to other women as well. I don't know why we become so, undermining of other women's pain, other women's life, and we become more judgmental of women. And I guess we judge men less and we judge women more as a woman. And I think all this comes down to just being loving and kind, and try to look at yourself and shower as much as love as you can, and do not normalize suffering, do not normalize pain, do not normalize all of this glorifying thing that the patriarchy has done for us. Like, you don't deserve it at all.
Yeah, I think the only suffering that's acceptable is the suffering that comes with learning something new.
Hmm.
Remember how when we first started learning tables, two into one, two, two twos are two, four, two threes are six. So I think the first time we studied it, it was very difficult. It was suffering, it was pain. I think the only pain that you are allowed to experience is when you're learning. The other pains that you experience are just not worth it. whether it be, waiting for someone to text you, or waiting for, or basically doing something just so that someone else will like you.
Hmm.
It's not worth it. Like, your worth is so much more than your tendency to reproduce. Whether you want to have children, don't want to have children, doesn't matter. Women are just naturally more creative. So create a way. And
And you are allowed to exist just as you are. Just exist. That's it.
even creating is like too much pressure. So, like, don't even
Yeah,
create.
just exist.
No, but I think, like, if we were just left alone, we like, and like, we felt safe, right? The first thing I think women would do is create.
Mm.
We would create art, we would create languages. We were like pretty cognitively loaded. Like, this whole understanding that like women are very emotional, right? I don't think we're emotional. I think we are sensitive. We feel things that are appropriate, but like, again, even the suffering, the pain that we spoke of, I think like it comes from somewhere. Like the
I have
daughter-in-law who's,
a
yeah.
very I don't know. This is I believe in this fact. I
Mhm.
believe emotional is rational, logical is irrational, and I truly believe in this because
Explain.
people who are
Mm.
logical, who believe in some sort of premises to come to a conclusion, it's stupidity because your emotion is the truth. It's emotion is the reality, what you're
but
feeling.
but I think, like, the problem is, uh intuition is different from emotion. Like, when you talk about insecurities, women feeling insecure about themselves, that's an emotion too. Does that mean that emotion is like right? I don't think so. But there are
Makes sense.
intuitions you get which are like emotionally loaded. They don't really have like a reason, right? Whereas your emotion, where it's not really coming from a place of wisdom, it's just coming
Hmm.
from your like thoughts and people's social conditioning, that is illogical. And
Yeah.
that is something, yeah,
So the emotional, I mean, is that emotion, the fact that you are able to sense, that you're able to create, you're able to be passionate, you're able to be compassionate. So all of these factors that is strong in us, the strong side of being emotional, having the emotional capacity, the emotional intelligence, the emotional quotient, I guess that is logic. Because I think many men they survive
are
on
lacking
logic
it.
because they suppress their emotions and bottle it up because they just don't want to face reality. If you're not facing reality, where is the logic, bro?
I feel like, for men, the reality is that if they did not oppress women, they lose their power. Like, why do we need men?
Hoot, hoot.
Like, this is so like radical to say, but like, why do we need men? And like, if you look at any problem in this world today, it's a man-made problem.
Literally.
Man-made, literally. Like, so like everything, war, the like, like, even the pollution that's happening, like, so even the crazy competitive rat race that happens with the corporate, everything was made by a man. So I don't know. I think we just need to reflect upon how women, even though we don't like build worlds that are problematic, uh, we do other things, and those things are actually natural and much more intuitive and wise.
I just
And
have
we
a
need
one
a
thing is
world.
we just
Yeah.
build something, create something that is problematic, that is male children.
Oh, oh, oh. I'm gonna cut that out. But I think, you know what, like, if we had male children and we were able to teach them how to sit with their emotions, right? I think men struggle with sitting with their emotions. They try to run away from it. And when they run away from it, they create nonsensical systems, right? Like, if you look at our caste system in India, or if you look at arranged marriage as a concept, these were all created by men. Religion, every single religion out there is patriarchal because men need something to justify their emotions. Oh, I am like this because I am this. You don't need categories. But like, like men need that. Men cannot like process the abstract nature of our existence. We're very fluid. We don't like need to label everything, but for them, they need that. So I think like it's a different thing. I don't think it's the male children that are the problem. It's the male children who don't learn how to process the emotions that they have inside. That's the problem. I think this is like a good place for us to stop because I think if we continue, we're gonna say a lot of mean things. Uh, and this is self-awareness, and we're proud of it.
Yeah. So I think I only want the listeners to know that pain is not normal, and there's a lot of things behind pain. It's not just physical, it's also psychological. So I guess if you are someone who's listening to our rant, also our scientifically sound rants, so do look at yourself with more kindness and look at the women around you with more kindness. And if you're a male, be nice, have more, you know, uh, good thoughts about women, and treat women with respect. And yeah, I think there's a lot we spoke today, and it's a little heavy sometimes and it's a little light sometimes, but I guess we will come back with more of this going forward. And yeah, if you are following us, do like our content, subscribe, share, comment, watch us on YouTube, also on Spotify, and also on Instagram. We are very active with our reels. Do engage with us. And yeah, we will see you again for our next episode. So
Until
until
next
then,
time. Until then.
bye bye.
Bye.